I'm John Heilemann.
And I'm Mark Halperin. And with all due respect to the former host of Celebrity Apprentice, hasta la vista, baby. On the show tonight, the Hillary Clinton flaps, the polling gaps, and the Make America Great Again caps. But first, Joe Biden's chap. This is a very big week in the presidential campaign. There's the guaranteed to be good television Republican debate on Wednesday. Hillary Clinton's poll numbers are now raising real questions in the Democratic Party. And John sets it all up with his account of Vice President Biden's secret meeting last Friday with Robert Wolf, a big-time Barack Obama bundler who is officially, for now, on Hillary Clinton's side. We don't have footage of that secret meeting, but we do have footage of John's article, which you can and should read in full for yourself on BloombergPolitics.com. John, tell everybody how your article advances the most interesting story right now in presidential politics, which is, will Biden do it?
Right. We're going to talk about two pieces of this, Mark. Let's talk about the first one now, which is the fundraising piece. We'll talk about the timetable after that. You know, Joe Biden is, according to everyone around him, there's still some question about whether he's going to do this. There's still all the human stuff that's holding him back. At the same time, no one disputes that he is much more gung-ho about running now than he was a month ago, and he's starting to do things in a very active way to have a campaign in waiting set up, reaching out to Robert Wolf, someone who can raise a lot of money, connect him to Wall Street, someone who would be a huge symbolic get, who's, as you noted, right now for Hillary Clinton, if he took her away from Secretary Clinton, and someone who would presumably have Barack Obama's blessing, because Obama and Wolf are very close friends, that would be a huge get if Biden were to do it. It would mean a lot. It would send a lot of signals. It's important on a lot of levels.
Look, there are lots of people who are currently for Hillary Clinton who used to be for Obama that if they jumped to Biden if he ran would cause a huge kerfuffle because of the way the Clintons get covered and because of the symbolism there. Right. The Wolf meeting, though, as you know and as you report, is just one of many things people in Biden world are doing. This is directly Biden, but a lot of Biden's people have stepped up their activity. Yep. They want to make it possible for him to run, for the mechanics to be there. So let's go to the mechanics. You report that contrary to what a lot of people say, that first debate in mid-October the Democrats are having is not a hard deadline. Biden may put his decision off.
Yes, the thinking had been, their timetable was, we must decide by early October because of that debate, because of the Jefferson-Jackson dinner in Iowa, because of the Florida Republican or the Florida Democratic Party convention at the end of the month. They are now thinking, no, let's wait until November, possibly. We can still make all the filing deadlines that are relevant. We can see whether Clinton starts to turn it around at all. We can wait until after her Benghazi testimony in late October and see how that affects her. And crucially, we give Joe Biden and his family another month to heal and get ready to take this on if they are going to take it on.
There's no way that Joe Biden will be organizationally up to speed with Hillary Clinton, whether he gets in today or he gets in a month and a half. All they need to do is make the filing deadlines, get Biden in most of the debates, and wait to see how vulnerable Hillary Clinton is. I've always thought he could wait. As long as he's on the ballot, he can wait a good long time. And I don't even think he needs to campaign that much. He can say, I'm busy being vice president. My family still needs me. Go to the debates, go to Iowa and New Hampshire, see if there's a groundswell, and again, wait for Hillary Clinton to falter.
Well, and look, I mean, what they are seeing is all the signs in the polling. Today, that ABC News Washington Post poll has her down again, as all these polls have. They have Biden basically tied with Sanders, even though he's not in the race, and you see her atrophying support with Democratic women, which is the most worrying thing in that poll. Those are all reasons for Joe Biden to get more and more serious, as I think he is. All right. There is also the Republican side of that poll I just mentioned with a good half dozen storylines baked right in. Obviously, the Donald the Trump is at the top of the leaderboard as usual, and Ben Carson is in a solid second. But here's something striking. In a head-to-head matchup, Trump is now virtually tied with Hillary Clinton. The margin is so small you couldn't squeeze a thumb drive of deleted emails in there. So, Mark, what do these numbers say about the current state of the Republican race?
Well, it's going to be harder for Republicans anytime soon to argue that they can't send Trump into the general election and they have a chance against the presumed Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton. I think the bigger thing is now in every state poll that matters, in every national poll, it's Trump and then Carson and no one else even close.
Right.
That means that those two guys now are going to be, they've created so much space between them and the others that it's going to be difficult for anybody else to get into the storyline, not just at the debate, but over the next few weeks and maybe months.
Well, we're going to talk about whether the establishment can rally behind someone in our next topic. But just the numbers, I mean, look at that. 33% for Trump, 20% for Ben Carson. 53% of the Republican electorate behind two guys who never held elective office before, who many people in the country, according to the ABC Washington Post poll, at least in Trump's case, don't even think are qualified. Trump's 60-some% in that poll say that Trump's not qualified, doesn't have the temperament or the intellect to be president, and yet there they are, far ahead, embodying this anti-establishment outsider spirit that dominates the race this time around. Those guys really, I mean, especially in these early states, Iowa, New Hampshire, they are now putting so much distance, as you say, between them and the rest of the field. Someone is going to have to break away, or else those guys are going to be the two to beat for months to come, I think.
And taking on Trump has its own complexities to it. Taking on Carson is also complicated.
Yep.
And so if you're somebody, any of the other candidates behind them, and you're trying to think of how do I move up, when Trump, as long as he's the leader, is going to continue to get the bulk of the media coverage. The reason they're so focused on the debate on Wednesday is it's one of the few chances they have where on some level at least they're on equal footing with Trump. But now they have to worry about not just catching up to Trump, but catching up to Carson in those early states and nationally. It makes it a very tall order for everybody. And it shows that Trump's theory that he would continue to rise despite all the troubles he's had so far has come true.
Absolutely right.
All right. So with Trump and Carson as the giants from the outside world, that makes the Republican establishment very panicky. Right now, the establishment thinks it has four big possible bets: Scott Walker, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, and John Kasich. All of them are trying to raise their profile enough to become the establishment alternative to Trump and Carson. Scott Walker, for instance, tonight is giving a big speech in Las Vegas talking about ways to rein in unions at the national level, the way he has in Wisconsin. All four of the establishment candidates, though, are under huge pressure to shine, particularly at the debate on Wednesday. After the first event, Bush and Walker appeared to deflate like a pair of footballs at Gillette Stadium, so both of their sides know Bush and Walker need to step up big time at the debate. Look at what's happened to the Bush and Walker poll numbers since July. Both of them have come way down nationally in that ABC poll. Kasich has gone up a little bit. Rubio's basically stayed static. So, John, at this point, with the big debate on Wednesday, of those four establishment candidates, who has the strongest hand, not just in the debate, but beyond, to try to become the establishment alternative?
I think right now the person who has the strongest hand, Mark, is John Kasich by far. And it's not really doesn't really show up in those numbers on a national level that well. Where you have seen Kasich rise is the one place where he's been trying to rise, which is in New Hampshire, where his numbers have improved appreciably. And there is a growing sense, I think, among Republican establishmentarians that Scott Walker has crumbled, that Marco Rubio has never taken off, and that Bush has crumbled to the point now that the only one who has any forward momentum is Kasich, and he could be the optimistic, compassionate conservative, that kind of mainstream conservative that they could rally behind if he continues and to perform well and improves on his last debate performance, which, as you'll recall, was very strong.
I'll tell you why I think Kasich might be the answer over the others is at least he's winning in a state, or doing well in a state, I should say.
Yeah.
There's no way to stop Trump unless you win one of the first four states. It's just a reality. And if you look today, where can Walker win? Iowa was his state. He's now down to 10th place.
Yes.
Rubio is casting around for his place to win in the first four. I've not seen it yet. Bush has some strength, I think more strength than people realize, in South Carolina, in Nevada. But if you don't win the first two, I'm not sure he'll get there. So Kasich in New Hampshire is the one strength. I will say, I think between Walker, Rubio, and Bush, at least one of them is going to have a second act. Maybe Bush, with his national experience and with the tens of millions of dollars, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars. But right now, you've got to say, if you can't beat Trump potentially in one of the first four, you can't be the establishment candidate.
Right. I think we were going to agree a little bit too much here. I mean, I think obviously Bush's money gives him the ability to last longer than some of these other folks. The money for Walker and Rubio Rubio is very tenuous now. It's dried up considerably. Those guys, as one of them collapses in the case of Walker and one of them kind of flatlines in the case of Rubio, not a lot of people ponying up for those two. Kasich's still raising money. Bush has a lot of money. If Bush could somehow mount a comeback, he could be in this, but he's going to have to do it pretty soon because he's starting to look like damaged goods to a lot of people who would be his natural constituents in the Republican establishment.
There's still so much vote up for grabs. I mean, you'd think in a normal race, some establishment candidate would be doing well. Right now, Trump is getting some establishment vote. Yeah. Carson is getting some establishment vote. Someone's going to have to take that away. I still think, as I said, some of the establishment candidates going to have a second act. Maybe Kasich will continue to grow, but it's not clear to me which of those four right now is best positioned.
Cannot wait till Wednesday night to see what happens. All right, lots more fun stuff is coming up on this show. What Hillary Clinton said about Donald Trump's view of women, what Bernie Sanders said at Liberty University, and what New York fashionistas say about those fetching Make America Great Again hats. Seriously, after this. Today, the two candidates who are most aggressively going after the Trumposaurus Rex are the two women running for president. First, watch part of the web video made by Carly Fiorina, who was with the subject of Trump's insult in Rolling Stone about her looks.
Ladies, look at this face. And look at all of your faces. The face of leadership. This is the face of a 61-year-old woman. I am proud of every year and every wrinkle.
As if on cue and as if coordinated, from the Democratic side of the aisle, the other woman in the race, Hillary Clinton was at the University of Northern Iowa today in Cedar Falls, and she charged into the fray, too, on the case of Trump versus the fairer sex.
You've heard Mr. Trump insult and demean women, haven't you? He occasionally throws some heat my way. He recently said I don't have a clue about women's health issues. And he'd do a much better job for women than I would. And as I've said, that is a general election debate I am really looking forward to. And I love it when he gets called out for his offensive comments about women. He comes back and he says he loves women. In fact, he says he cherishes women. Well, that's nice. But if it's all the same to you, Mr. Trump, I'd rather you stop cherishing us and respecting us instead.
So, Mark, those are two pretty strong, sharp-edged attacks on Donald Trump on this issue. I'm curious as to whether you think one of them was stronger than the other. I like the Carly Fiorina thing an awful lot, but I'm also curious as to how resonant you think this could be or how potentially damaging it could be to Trump.
Well, that video from her super PAC and Hillary Clinton on the stump saying pretty much what she said about Trump before, I think are coming from different motives. Fiorina, I think, is doing anything she can to get in the mix. She is certainly on the rise, but I think some people in the press have overstated just how far she's come up in national polls and in the state polls. And she wants to continue to be the center of attention. Hillary Clinton wants to change the subject from the Democratic fight to talking about the Republican frontrunner and to try to get women back on her side by going after Trump. I think they're both, though, on pretty solid ground because Trump will punch back at them both, but not quite as hard as he'll punch back at a man.
Well, and it is harder to punch back. Just the reality of the world is that although we treat our candidates equally, we should treat them equally. It is hard for a man to beat up a woman and get away with it in the way that a man can beat up a man and get away with it in presidential politics. I agree with you. You know, Hillary Clinton definitely trying to get those women voters back. Also, I think trying to kind of remind people what it would look like with her as the Democratic nominee and trying to show people what it would be like to have her taking on Donald Trump in a general election. So you're reinforcing the notion that she's still the most likely nominee in her party. And I think that is an effective tactic, and Trump feeds into it and gives her somewhere to turn that is to her benefit when he does things like he has done lately.
given 11 candidates on the stage, it's really going to be up to Jake Tapper of CNN and the other moderators about whether they want to incite a discussion between Donald Trump and Carly Fiorina over what is basically a question of an insult or an alleged insult. It's not a matter of substance. And I think if Fiorina goes after Trump on any topic, I think Trump's going to come back after her on her business record. Right. And there's a lot of reporting out there, as you know, on her business record where she's not going to be on the strongest ground substantively or rhetorically.
Right. Of course, though, the problem is because he has not just made an insult towards her, but also with the Megyn Kelly thing, there's a couple of instances in which she can try to parry and say, you just don't want to take me seriously, sir, because you're basically a misogynist, and she will have some evidence to work with if she makes that claim.
Yeah, that's one thing people are going to watch on Wednesday. All right, one other big political event today we wanted to talk to you about, which was Bernie Sanders, out of all places, Jerry Falwell's Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. He went there to give a speech and to reach out. Here's a taste of how America's favorite socialists meshed with the evangelical crowd after being introduced by Jerry Falwell, Jr.
People have been asking, well, are you going to be able to find any common ground with the senator? And I think I did. I think this morning, Senator Sanders, if you'd come up. I think in the future he's going to be a fan of the Liberty Flames.
I understand that the issues of abortion and gay marriage are issues that you feel very strongly about. We disagree on those issues. I get that. But let me respectfully suggest that there are other issues out there that are of enormous consequence to our country and, in fact, to the entire world, that maybe, just maybe, we do not disagree on. And maybe, just maybe, we can try to work together to resolve them.
John, substantively strong, symbolically resonant, and the kind of thing I cannot imagine Hillary Clinton doing. I think this was a really smart and important step for Bernie Sanders today.
I 100% agree. I 1,000% agree. And I think it's one of those things where it's not just something you can't imagine Hillary Clinton doing. It's something you couldn't almost before today have imagined Bernie Sanders doing. He is seen, because of the fact that he is on the far left of the Democratic Party, as being not someone who's capable of a post-partisan appeal, of reaching across the aisle. And yet, in fact, we know that when it comes to economics, there are parts of the Tea Party and parts of the Democratic left that are in agreement. And that is what Bernie Sanders is zeroing in on here. He might not get very many of those votes, but boy, does it seem smart to me to highlight the fact that we have some areas where there is cross-ideological agreement, especially on issues of populism, the banks, economics, etc.
Now, he did bring some supporters with him, and there's no doubt that the students at Liberty University are a polite group, and they weren't going to heckle him or anything. But to go down there and to reach out and explicitly say, here's what we disagree on, but it's important to speak to people who disagree with you on some issues. And as you said, emphasizing the economic issues of economic justice. I think all the ways we've underestimated Bernie Sanders, the bigness of his vision, the bigness of his willingness to talk to people from the other party, people who don't agree with him, I think that has become and will become increasingly a huge source of his strength in taking on Hillary Clinton and maybe Joe Biden.
Yes, well, and again, I mean, really playing into another element of Sanders' strength, which is his consistency. That speech is a different speech in terms of some of the words, some of the themes, some of the reaching across the party aisle, but in terms of how he looked giving it, and in terms of the kind of principles it embodies, thoroughly consistent with everything else he's been saying throughout this campaign, you know, and that consistency is so core, is so key to why people have been drawn to him, why he has generated not just so much support, but so much enthusiasm, and so much more enthusiasm than Hillary Clinton has been able to muster in this campaign against him.
I'm sure his campaign had discussions both before he accepted the thing and after. But can you imagine if Hillary Clinton was thinking about going to Liberty University or accepted the invitation? She would have hundreds of hours of meetings in preparation of what could go wrong. The guy just went into the lion's den, and he did a great job.
And they would have rewritten her speech 437 times. It would have been absolutely a nightmare of cobbled together speechifying. Anyway, all right. We're moving on. We took Donald Trump's hat to Fashion Week. That bombshell report when we come back after these words from our sponsor. The following statement is 100% accurate and true. Donald Trump told the New York Times that his Make America Great Again hats are, quote, the hottest fashion item there is, end quote. Well, look, we take fact-checking very seriously around here at Bloomberg Politics. So our man, Alex Trowbridge, took some of those hats to New York Fashion Week headquarters in Chelsea to get to the bottom of Trump's claim.
Donald Trump says this is the hottest fashion item there is. We're here at New York Fashion Week to see if that's true. First big question, what is the fashion item right now?
Trenches and like parachute coats I'm seeing a lot of.
I think classic items are the best.
What about a classic hat?
Classic hats.
I'm into like dad hats right now. I'm really into dad hats, like simple baseball hats that like they're like understyled, you know?
Well, let me show you a baseball cap that might change your mind. Trump describes this as the hottest fashion item there is. Agree or disagree?
I disagree. Trump doesn't know what he's talking about.
No.
No? Nothing about this is fashionable?
You're fired!
I guess that's pretty awesome. Yeah, and it's a snapback, so snapbacks are pretty cool.
If you had to rock this hat,
I'd wear it with a denim jacket, plaid button down tucked into boyfriend jeans, and some Adidas Superstars.
would you mind modeling this for us?
I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not. Like, I know his ideology, but you cannot be that racist. We're all good people. I'm Mexican, and I'm not a drug dealer.
What I respect about Trump is that he doesn't care what anyone thinks, and for fashion, that's what you have to do.
Is it smart for Trump to get into the fashion game?
I'm not sure it's for him, but I think he could wear one of these hats to maybe cover the mess on his head.
What do you got there? What did you just buy?
I just bought a Donald Trump Make America Great Again hat.
I see you got the gold lettering.
Of course, I get nothing but the best.
And turn. Strike a pose.
We promised that no models were harmed during the making of that video. We'll be right back.
We are live 24/7 on BloombergPolitics.com, but we're on the tube twice a day at 5 and at 8 on Wednesday. We're on for an hour, 5 Eastern time, teeing up the big Republican debate.
Until tomorrow, from me and Mark, we say to you, sayonara.